but she's supposed to be like super bad, so she gets to be a Calidus model.
Overcharge the ion accelerator. It's time to forge the narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. We are the Battle Lost Souls podcast. Do not adjust your set. You're going to hear two intros to this show. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined by Tanya Gates.
Hey everybody.
Red Powell and Adam Camilleri.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
So last week ended up just getting incredibly jammed up, and I did not release last week's episode, so I'm going to release it this week with some bonus content stuck on the end. So it's going to be like an episode and a half. I hope that's okay with everyone.
I'm sure they'll cope.
Well, I don't like to be missing weeks or episodes, but when we start talking about like what all we did coming off the grand narrative in the finale for the U.S. Open Series, hopefully folks can understand. Just time and time zones got the better of me with all the editing, and I apologize. But anyway, hold tight. We're going to break here, come back. You're going to hear another intro, and last week it was Red and Tanya and myself. And then at the conclusion of that, we're going to jump back in with this crew for the fresh stuff from this week. So we'll don't go to the links. Well, you can go watch the rebroadcast of the stuff. But yeah, anyway, hold tight. We'll see you.
See you.
You're listening to Forge the Narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul, your host. I'm joined by Tanya Gates.
Hey everybody.
And Red Powell.
What up?
Adam Camilleri is on vacation.
Lucky.
Yeah, he sent us the pictures. He had a gorgeous place. Well, hopefully he can talk about it next week when he is back.
It's so funny because we're going into winter where I live. There's snow everywhere. It's cold. And he sends us this beautiful summertime Australian photo. And I'm like, wish I was there.
This weekend, if you're hearing this, some of us are going to be at the grand narrative finale event for the Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar U.S. Open Series in, speaking of a beautiful resort, in New Mexico. And I had to check the weather, and it's going to be pretty frosty there as well.
Is it going to be snow?
I don't know. It's going to be in the teens in the evening. I don't think it's going to be snow.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is in Canadian.
20 degrees Fahrenheit below freezing.
No.
I'm not. I mean, that's in the evening. In the daytime, it's supposed to be like in the 40s Fahrenheit. Again, I don't know the math. Above freezing, going to be slightly above freezing.
I gotta pull this up.
In the evening, it is going to be freezing.
Oh, that is like literally freezing. Okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you.
No, it's not hyperbole here. It's going to be chilly.
Your nighttime is like my daytime high.
But I'm from the East Coast. I've never been to this particular part of the country. You hear like, oh, it's a desert, right? I'm sure it is, but it's going to be a cold desert.
I feel like it's probably a lot like where I live because I also live in a desert, but it just gets so all of our precipitation is in the winter. It goes from being really stinking hot to really stinking cold in the span of 2 weeks. It's probably very similar there.
Reggie, that's kind of near you, isn't it?
It is. I'm only a little further south by about 4 hours. And yes, it shouldn't be. I know a lot of people just associate immediately any kind of desert environment with it being pretty hot, but it will go here even right now in beautiful El Paso from about 45 degrees to 75 degrees in the range of a day, and it'll be right back to it in the evening during the winter. So it's not, it's not constantly a microwave by any means.
Well, I am looking forward to being there. It's supposed to be a very gorgeous resort. We're going to be streaming some content there. We're going to be covering, throughout the whole weekend, we'll be covering some of what's going on with the narrative, but then we'll also be on Saturday and Sunday streaming the games from the finale, from the competitive, and we'll get coverage from the best general side too. And these are players that have won their ticket to this event through battling it out through the various other U.S. Open Series and some of the largest events around the world. And, we've talked about this before, but round one pairings have already been picked. So these players have some intel about who they're going to be facing and the army they're going to be facing in round one. I know that would be awesome to know. I'd be doing all kind of homework leading up to this event.
I do find, because I watched this equivalent last year, and I did find that most of the games were just absolutely amazing to watch because it was like the best of the best matchups that you could have, and I really like them. So I'm going to try my best to tune in as much as I can this weekend.
That will be on the twitch.tv/Warhammer. So that's on the Warhammer TV page there on Twitch. On Friday, we're going to be covering a whole lot of as much of the narrative as we can do without like compromising the immersion of you players. Red.
Yeah, I'm fortunate and glad to be part of that population. It's going to be pretty awesome.
I have hastily assembled a little bit of cosplay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really cool, the recommendations. I mean, because with the event listing, they came with some kind of ground rules of how they're approaching it. And I'm really excited that they're taking this to the extent that they are with the grand narrative, which is definitely using Crusade. I'm really excited to see that being played at such a massive event. And I mean, right out the gate, some of the things that they talk about, right? So they go, I mean, like number one, the essentials. Okay, so it's narrative play. There's 5 games. Army selection is an order of battle determined by power level. The supply limit, the limit is 150. The games are going to range from 50 to 100, and that's pretty cool because it allows you to swap in and out, different things depending on where you are, because they've already, in another document, they've highlighted these different battlefields that we're going to be fighting throughout. And so, for different armies, it might not make sense to have this versus that versus whatever, depending on where you're fighting. And so you get to bring in these different units. And then, of course, the narrative system, you'll be allowed to as Crusade plays out, even in a couple fights or a couple battles, you'll have enough to really level up and give some character or even battle scars to some of your units and how you play it. And I think it should be really cool. The other part they've added in, they're encouraging folks to bring Kill Team and Aeronautica Imperialis armies or forces, which is really exciting because of different aspects that they might have to it. So you bring all that, and then at the very end of this essentials document, they talk about uniforms, where they say commanders are encouraged to arrive in the appropriate uniform. Where they're encouraging people essentially to do cosplay throughout the campaign.
Yes, this cosplay throughout the campaign is strongly encouraged, with special rewards for those commanders that participate.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I gotta admit, I mean, it was I'm sure there's going to be some really great ones. I admit probably going guard is a little easier than having to cosplay. Anything ranging from
a Tyrannid,
even Space Marines, Custodes, right? All of them. But I do have some pretty cool stuff that I've kind of pulled together to make this thing work. So it'll be pretty awesome because I am the commander of a Tanith Regimental Auxiliary Unit is what I'm calling it. I'm really excited to introduce this and bring it in because it's kind of my own little headcanon for what my force constitutes and why they're Tanith and how they get into it without, I have this thing I think everybody could probably appreciate degrees of originality. I appreciate Dan Abnett's writing so much in regards to Gaunt's Ghosts that it's tough for me to emulate it to the degree of just straight up copying the entire army. Now I have done that, but taking the environment, how is Gaunt's Ghosts, how would I dare, I even think to rip them out of their current setting and put them into this. It just doesn't sit well with me. So I've essentially lifted a lot of the amazing elements of it and put it into my own Tanith auxiliary army that's being added into it. And I'm really excited to bring that to the table.
It just sounds great. I like it how the cosplay is encouraged, but it's not mandatory. I think it's kind of
not.
There is a certain thing that you might really like it, and you're right. There may be some difficult things like for a Tyrannid to do, but you could be like a Gene Stealer cultist or something.
You could. Yeah, you absolutely could. I mean,
and still be on brand, even if you're not playing GSC or something like that. I think it's the more of the any type of effort is just appreciated and encouraged. It's kind of cool that creativity is there's a good space for it.
I mean, and they, honestly, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, they kind of brought everybody into a Discord channel and broke everybody into these battle groups. And so they've kind of aligned everybody and put them into these little groups, and they're going to fight through it as these battle groups to a certain extent. But myself and some of the other members in the Discord recommended or requested a lore channel where a lot of different players have kind of plugged in summary inserts of their armies and like what's bringing them to the Sabrine system. It's really, really exciting to see everybody's effort that they put into it.
Did you get any info on like the atmospheric battles?
I mean, yeah. So they provide a document that it's kind of lays out the different areas. There's I'm sure that someone will come back and correct me for butchering these as I tend to do. The like Kalzika Cargorium.
No, you got it.
Which is,
you actually nailed it the first time.
Oh snap!
Yeah.
Cargorium. It's it's like a whole shipping area. And so that's going to be cool because it's going to have all the cranes and containers and everything else. It's just this massive cargo area that I can only imagine how that'll lay out in kind of an urban environment, ranging to the Iron Wastes, which is this armored plain area, kind of desert. I'm imagining kind of a Mad Max wasteland. And then the Sermona Magnificat, which is like I'm kind of seeing as like a cathedral-like area. With a lot of others. I mean, they just did an amazing job setting this up in these different little battlefields that I'm really excited to see how they've laid this up, set it up, and what they're going to do to kind of put us into this. It's exciting to say the least.
I think I'm in for a treat. Like this is one of those events that I really wish that I could participate in a way that's playing. I'll be on the sidelines, bringing you some Catachan news. See how that goes.
What exactly do you mean by Catachan news?
Well, because everyone there, like even when you check into the hotel, you're actually going to check in as the name of your commander or your warlord, the character you're representing.
Ah, so I see. So you are a Catachan news anchor or a journalist?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, that's what I'm gonna. If I can, I don't want to break the plane or whatever. I want to keep everybody as much as I can in their moment, and if I can sneak in and get any kind of content, I want to make sure it's not a jarring experience.
War correspondent.
There you go. Do you have a Catachan name picked out?
Oh, I'm still debating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watch this. I'm so like if you follow the Ghost books, like a colonel is in charge of a regiment, right? And so my character is a colonel, and my character's name is Colonel Red Pavel.
I love it so much.
Thinking something like Axel Hawk.
There you go.
We'll see.
Love it.
But it's gonna be fun. Everyone else is having the same thought. I mean, which is so neat. Like this is the type of stuff. Like we used to, going into tournaments or whatever, we would create stories and theme elements for our armies and bring them to grand tournaments, and that would be part of the experience. And you would talk about it with your opponents over the course of the weekend. And this is going to be like amped up to 1 billion. And I know the staff is going just putting in all kind of effort to make this a great experience for players, and I know it's going to pay off, and I can't wait to get as many pictures as I possibly can, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts after the event.
It's going to be great.
There are also the hobby classes. We talked about these last week, like the Painted Titan and all the same stuff. A lot of the same stuff that you get from a US Open Series event is going to be there, but it is kind of, this whole nother thing. Like I believe that there are actually more players for the narrative that have attended some of the other, like I say, feeder events to this because of just how different and new it is.
Yeah, so this is the first time that they've run anything like this scale in terms of narrative.
Yeah, I mean, this is we're talking about competing. You're gonna be going through a whole story, whole campaign with all those different types of play things, all the different war zones, all the different people, all the different characters you're going to encounter. This is going to be an experience.
Now, I've heard rumors, and to me they are just rumors because I haven't really looked into it, but I have heard rumors that whoever wins this narrative event has the opportunity to get written into 40k canon. Is that correct?
I don't know that winning is a criteria, but
yeah, I think there's probably they have a list of the characters that they have, right? I think they have these kind of specific roles that are being filled by characters that they've set up, figureheads, right, for the different armies. And I think that they'll be part and parcel of some of these different missions that we're playing through. And I think our victories and our losses are going to contribute to the narrative in its own way. I don't think maybe any one person is going to like get lifted up to it, but I do think that some of this, as we've talked about before, like where did Gazgul come from, right? Where did Captain Tycho and Yarick and the like how did all of that come together amongst Armageddon? And some of it was these narrative events and how they kind of played out. And so I do think that that's going to contribute to it. We're going to see some new heroes and villains kind of set the stage from this engagement. I think that we'll see how that reflects in the future, but I can't say any one player. Maybe I'd be very interested to hear if that was even possible that a player might be lifted up like that.
I have not heard of that, but also I don't want to claim to know, as I'm sure more info will come out, about all that during the course of the weekend. But I believe it is the overall experience, like you're talking about, Red, which is the thing that's going to get into the lore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm super jealous. This sounds like a ton of fun.
Looking forward to it. As I understand it, we have like most of the event space there at the hotel. And that does include some outside areas with fire pits. Fire pits very important because I mentioned the aforementioned chilliness of the area. Because I do want to see some of the sights, the landscape while we're there.
I would just love to see somebody in like a full Space Marine get up roasting marshmallows. That would just be the ultimate for me.
I don't know that you should rule it out. You might get that. That might happen.
Please take photos if you see it.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
So the narrative event and coverage, some other things like general, like, what to expect from events like this. Do a lot of that coverage on Friday on Twitch, and then get into we'll be streaming like our normal run of a couple of those competitive games on each round on Saturday and Sunday to have the eventual like grand champion from those competitive events. They get their names emblazoned forever on the big trophies that travel around with us from event to event. And yeah, you are right, seeing those people play. And so the rules for the like best overalls that qualified is that they have to bring an army that is of the same caliber in which they won with, because the best overall has the hobby and the battle included in their prize or their victory. And then the best general, while they do have to maintain all the same standards for paint, they can bring whatever the army that they wanted. And some generals have chosen to bring different armies.
Oh man, that's like some confidence there.
Yeah, I don't know if I can talk about the armies yet. So you may actually have to tune in on that weekend to see who's bringing what. But let's just say some folks, either they're feeling incredibly confident, like you mentioned, or they're just looking to have a chill weekend.
Or they've been in the hobby for so long that they have multiple good-looking armies to choose from, which is probably more likely the case.
I have no doubt that the overall side is going to be spectacular, like just great looking stuff. But we'll see how it goes. I am again incredibly excited, looking forward to the weekend. This is closing out the U.S. Open series for this year. It has to be. I mean, this has been incredibly successful. I have to imagine there's going to be more for next year. So if this is something that you think you want to participate in next year, keep a lookout for any type of information that comes. Hopefully, you'll hear about it from the Games Workshop site. But us and other shows will certainly try to bring some of the info to you. So yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about that. And now let's talk a little bit about Guard. Sorry, Astra Militarum.
Oh man.
Yay!
What's that? It's that meme, where they've got what is it? You're in the Guard, son. Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, Astra Mula. What?
It is kind of funny that they do in the stories in the book. It mentions, of course, Astra Militarum, and as soon as it gets into the thick of it, it's like guard this, guard that. Because we know where they're at in our hearts.
That's right. Fancy names won't hold us back.
Yeah, there are, speaking of fancy names, the name generator in here. So, talking about like Catachin and Talaran names.
Oh, that's cool.
Could just take them from the book here.
Roll it up. What's your Catachan name?
You know what? Maybe I will. Let's do it live on screen right now.
You won't do it.
Oh, he's calling you out.
Let me get a D6 here. Hang on. Stay with me.
The suspense.
I know. It is. Well, no, I don't know if this is going to work.
What is it?
Storm Crazy Winners.
Crazy Winners. Oh,
kind of appropriate.
But it doesn't kind of like, it doesn't roll off the tongue like.
Yeah, I might have to go with Axel
Hawk.
Yeah. Look, we tried. We tried.
We did.
Yeah.
I feel like GW, if you're listening, do better on the name generators. Come on now.
So I was going through a game with a buddy, and the game was not going very well for my opponent. It was one of those to where just couldn't catch a break, and I knew the tricks of their army, so they really weren't get to put the whammy on me or whatever. And then they finally got around to killing a sanguinary guard, and I immediately opened up the name generator, like, oh no, not Angelus Valorum. He's like, shut up.
Are you one of those people that could potentially get little name plates for each of your sanguinary guard or whatnot?
My life is not that organized.
No. I see some people that have these full thematic armies. Like I have a buddy who has an amazing Custodes army. It's absolutely gorgeous, and everybody has a nameplate. I'm just like, man, the commitment and organization.
Yeah, it is cool. And I guess, really, once they're on there, I have to worry about it again. But I don't know. Seems like a little bit extra.
I feel like I would just get so emotionally invested that when they died, I would literally shed a tear. Like, oh no, not Ajax. He was the best boy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Since this book dropped, I guess, or at least was, up for pre-order here, I've been thinking about, what if you put 100 Death Strikes on the table? And then added up however many points that is, and then had your opponents get the equivalent amount of points to put on the other side of the table.
Okay.
What would happen?
Well, I guess it depends who rolls first. Are the Death Strikes going first? So that might be no bueno.
Yeah. I guess it is a good point. Right? And maybe 100's too much. They're 160 points apiece.
It's a lot of points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just 4,000 points of Death Strikes.
I mean, I think you should play it out. I think you should go to the store and order as many Death Strikes as you can find.
No, this had to be like a team thing. I wonder if everyone that owns a Death Strike would...
I don't own one.
I actually don't know many people who do.
Don't know. What do you mean?
A Death Strike missile.
Big missile?
Yeah.
I'm looking at 2 of them right now.
Oh man, we need 23 more to get 4,000 points.
Okay. Don't tempt me with a good time.
I wonder if we can arrange
You want
this.
big missiles? I'll give you big missiles, Paul. I got 'em.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if we talked about them on the last show.
We should, though.
Yeah, so the Death Strike missile is that during the muster army step, after you've seen your opponent's army roster, select one of the following warheads for this model to be equipped with and make a note of the selection on your army roster. Godspear warhead, Plasma Barrage warhead, Vortex warhead. So I like the fact that you can do it game by game.
Okay, but what do they do?
Yeah, you're asking the great questions. So the model can perform the following action: align target action. In your command phase, any number of Death Strike models from your army that have not launched their missile, see right, can start to perform this action. The action is completed at the end of your turn. If completed, you must do one of the following: place a Death Strike target marker anywhere on the battlefield for the model that completed this action. Or 2, if the Death Strike target marker is already on the battlefield for the model that completed this action, move that marker to anywhere on the battlefield, and then it explodes. When this model, that's what the model does if you destroy it. The launch missile in your shooting phase. When this model is selected to shoot, if it is not within engagement range of any enemy units, its Death Strike target marker is on the battlefield, see left, and it has not launched its missile. You can choose for its missile to be launched. If you do so, resolve the relevant effect below for the warhead this model is equipped with. See left of you choosing it. So the Godspear warhead, roll 1d6 for each unit within 3 inches of the center of this model's Death Strike target marker. On a 2 through 3, that unit suffers 8 mortal wounds. On a 4 through 5, the unit suffers 12 mortal wounds. On a 6, that unit suffers 16 mortal wounds. Then remove this model's Death Strike target marker from the battlefield.
That's just a quaint number of mortal wounds.
This is 16 within a 3-inch radius.
No, no big deal.
Yeah. The next one is a Plasma Barrage warhead. Roll 1d6 for each unit within d3 plus 6 inches of the center of this model's Death Strike target marker, subtracting 1 from the result if that unit is an infantry character. On a 2 through 3, the unit suffers d3 plus 1 mortal wounds. On a 4 through 5, it suffers 2d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it suffers d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Then you remove it. Here's the Vortex Warhead. At the end of each of your shooting phases, if this model's death strike marker is on the battlefield, roll a d6 for each unit within d3 plus 3 of the center of the marker. On a 2 through 3, suffers d3 mortal wounds. 4 through 5, d3 plus 1. On a 6, 2d3. Then roll 1d6. On a 1 to 3, remove this model's death strike target marker from the battlefield. And on a 4 plus, do not remove the marker from the battlefield, but the marker cannot be used to align target action for the rest of the battle. So, 25 Godspear warheads. I don't even know if that's good.
You still got to hit with them though, right?
No. I mean, you have to perform the action.
Oh, so you do the action and it automatically goes there.
Yes.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Yeah, place the death strike target marker anywhere on the battlefield for the model that completed the action. And then 2, if the death strike target marker is already on the battlefield, then you can move it to move the marker to anywhere on the battlefield.
I mean, you just put it on an objective and go, what? You want it? Come and get it.
You basically have a turn. Yeah, you get a way to turn, then launch these missiles.
I love it. I love it. Just like the whole why do I love it? I love it because of like the psychological games that you can play with your opponent.
Is anything I mentioned, is it compelling you to try to work them into your list? That's because these things have always been kind of like neat,
right,
but maybe not powerful. And like Tanya, I don't own one either, as far as like this. So it's never tempted me, and I don't know if this is pulling me to it.
I can't say that it's gonna like force everybody's hand, and you're gonna see everybody running 3 of them, kind of like what you. And I'm not saying you saw 3 Manticores either, but you do typically see Manticores nowadays, right? For a lot of good reasons.
Does it replace a Manticore?
Does it replace a Manticore? Not. I don't think it does, but I also think that the Manticore and the Basilisks have become a little more, have kind of gone in a different direction, whereas this has, especially like I'm thinking of like the God Spear, this ability to pick a point and kind of hold it. Okay, I'm going to pick that objective. I have a specific mission that says that objective, and I'm going to put this thing all the way in the back, and I'm going to hide it in a little alcove where you can't easily just flit around the field and pop it, right? But I am going to make it difficult for you to get to, and it's going to sit back there, and it's just going to wait until you get on that objective, and then it's going to drop, and it's going to do X amount of
16.
mortal wounds
always,
to you,
always
right?
16.
I mean, there you go. And so like it's just going to drop that. It's just going to happen. But you got to get to it if you want to stop it. And it's a cool kind of forcing ultimatum. I'm not saying it's going to. How many points is it? This
160.
is a big one, right? See, I mean, 160
Base.
points to you're talking essentially 10 points of mortal wound. And that could just happen, right? And so if you get onto that objective and you put that, you could target their back objective, that kind of deal. Okay, you're going to be within this objective. Well, this is going to happen. I'm going to show you why you're about to eat 16 mortal wounds. That's pretty good for some armies. Is it a must take? I don't think so, but it definitely add character? Yep, 100% it does. Especially with some of the other regimental bonuses that we've talked about, the indirect bonus to this versus that or what have you. And I don't know if those necessarily synergize, but there's enough to it that I think it's great. I think that they've added enough flavor to make it worthwhile and interesting.
It does have the regimental and squadron keywords.
Yeah, so I don't know if the artillery bombardiers or which one is it that essentially allows like forward observers to observe for it and gives it an addition to it. I think there's some cool aspects that could be worked into it. Needless to say, I'm hoping that there's a stratagem somewhere in there that's associated with it. Maybe.
Tanya, what do you think as far as like replacing? We talked a lot about the Hydra, and they kind of got his glow up. And they're competing for the same slots.
I think it's really good for casual play. Like I said, I'm a filthy casual.
When it lands, it's going to be very satisfying.
It's going to be really satisfying, and yeah, for me, it would just be like hilarious to just see your opponent's face the first time they hear about what it does. But it does how many mortal wounds? Yeah, it potentially could do 16. Yeah, for me, that's going to be really fun. I'm probably going to pick one up.
Yeah, with it like not being a turret weapon kind of thing, like you can't fire it if it's in an engagement range. That I think is a little limiting considering just how powerful the turret weapons are.
But now we have counterpunch.
What was that?
Now we have a counterpunch unit.
Yeah.
So it's not so much a big deal.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be really hard to resist wanting 3 of the Rogoderm battle tanks.
Mhm.
And a
No, I
list.
mean for real. I mean, you saw some of my work, and folks will get to see it this weekend. But I have not yet brought, and I know it's kind of sacrilege for me, but I'm bringing tanks to the fight. I'm super excited. And this is the new codex is not in play for this event this weekend. I look forward to getting it. I look forward to getting the new kit and everything. And I look forward to getting Rogel Dorn tanks, but I'm bringing one command tank and two other tanks. And the next part, like kind of cool thing for me to enjoy the weekend as well, is I'm bringing my two oldest sons, and each of them are going to have their own battle tank that they're going to kind of play during the event for me. And so that'll be fun because with the whole Crusade narrative system, they'll get to level it up. But bringing these tanks, I'm just excited to get them on the field, especially with the environment and everything else that's going to be going on. But I got to say, I'm kind of pushing the battle tanks now before I go out and get the Rogel Dorn tanks.
So you used to moving that armor around the table?
No, I mean I think I'm pretty used to moving armor around, period, whether it's on the table or in the real world.
real life.
Oh,
It's I wanted to, at least while these were the big guns, I wanted to bring them out and make them worth something.
do you feel like totally schooled right now, Paul?
I
Dang.
set him up for that.
You
He did. It did. It was a soft pitch. Soft pitch.
But I'm glad he took it. I'm glad he skipped no time, you know. All right, well, let's take a break. We'll come back, talk a little bit more about this, and of course, the event. You know, at least some of us are going to this coming up weekend. We'll see you in a few minutes.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
We are back. Thanks for joining us. We've been talking a lot about the Warhammer 40,000 stuff. I'm actually going to be covering Age of Sigmar over the course of the weekend as well, kind of splitting back and forth between 40k coverage and some Sigmar coverage.
Yes, Sigmar.
It's exciting.
As I don't have quite as much experience with Sigmar, so I've been doing some studying and some homework, and sourcing some info from some of the best players around the world. Sigmar has an amazing community. Very happy to share information.
So what's the most interesting thing that you found out in your research?
So the Dodge Arcane, still very powerful, and they've got several different ways you can build the list. You can either go with like Marathi, and Marathi is very similar to like an Abaddon, or something something that has that wound cap.
Yeah, she's like the tough thing in the army because almost everything else is pretty squishy.
Well, it's a very cool character is that there's the little Marathi and the big Marathi, and they're both on the field at the same time, and they both count towards the wound cap. So that if you do 3 wounds to one, then any damage you do to the other, that phase nullified.
I did not know that they're like both were on the field at the same time. That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's some really tricky stuff you can do, such as you'll see some generals, they'll push the big one or the little one forward and keep one back for whatever reason, because it's buffing one of the other units in the army or something like that. But some of them will push them both forward and get them locked up with big units, and some of the models that are engaged with only one of them, their attacks will essentially be blanked because they can't do any more damage than the other half of the unit did to the whatever model they attacked first. I thought that was a very interesting dynamic.
I think it's a really interesting faction. My husband plays them a little bit and still sort of figuring them out. And yeah, he when he does bring it, he never leaves Marathi at home.
It's an amazing model, so I can't really fault that. And then it turns out that there's this unit that's available to basically everybody.
The Kronspine Incarnate.
That's it, yeah.
Yep.
And if you don't do enough, basically you got to do a certain amount of wounds to it or it just heals full.
Yeah, it kind of levels up and levels down, sort of based off what it's doing and what's being done to it. It's kind of tricky to play against, actually.
You've got to kill a monster, I think, to level it up. And monsters are in short supply. There's a bunch of them in the game.
Yeah, but you're seeing a little bit less of them now in this battle pack because you used to get extra points for doing your battle tactics with monsters in the last battle pack. So now you don't have that anymore. So you are seeing less of them, but almost every faction has access to some form of monster.
I heard that Beast of Chaos are really dominant right now, and that they have kind of like a terrain piece.
Yeah. So it's called the Herd Stone, I believe, and they can like summon out of it, and they have a whole bunch of White Dwarf rules that they got that are making them pretty competitive, I guess, is from what I've heard. Nobody really plays them in my local area, so I haven't gotten to experience it yet.
They're also not going to be in the best journal side of the factions either. So I don't know if it's something to where that's the meta is shifting away from them, or hasn't caught up to the fact that Beast of Chaos are super strong. But I've kind of heard they're pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think that their win rates are pretty good. It's kind of shocking that they're not in there, but how many, just out of curiosity, because it's like an invitational kind of style, how many spots were open in total?
8.
For each
8
side?
for each section. It's like best journal is 8, best overall is 8 on both sides of the Sigmar. And there's also a kill team too.
I mean, there's so many factions that with 8, I mean, you're not really going to be able to see everything. And in my opinion, from what I've seen in the stats, Age of Sigmar is, I don't want to use the B word, but like it's pretty well balanced. There's only like a few outlying factions that are kind of doing poorly, and then there's like 2 at the top that are above a 60% win rate, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than that, everybody's sort of around the 45 to 55% mark. So
That's pretty good.
it is pretty good, and I would think that would mean that there'd be variation in those 8 players.
Yeah, there is, and again, I don't know if I can reveal the factions stuff people are playing as. So you have to tune in and see what they took, see what these, the people that have won the Best Journals Award, what they've decided to take. But let's just say I've done a lot of research on the Daughters of Cain. Last couple of days. I don't personally play them, but they were a cool looking army. Of course, I love Marathi, and then there's a bunch of the like hybrid snake witch elf type units, and those look really strong. So I may have taught myself into playing Daughters of Cain.
I feel like everything kind of hits like a truck in Daughters of Cain. It just doesn't oftentimes survive the punchback.
I think that's probably dead on there. What I've learned is that they can kind of arrange things like shoot twice or maybe fight again and that kind of stuff, and they kind of want to be in the driver's seat doing the damage, and then the only thing that can really tank things is either Marathi, or if you have something along the lines of the Cauldron of Blood that can rally your troops more reliably. But we shall see.
I do also want to say on the Daughters of Cain, they have the coolest endless spells. They have that one that's like a giant snake, and I don't really have the desire to play Daughters of Cain, but I want to paint that snake spell so bad.
That made it on our unofficial creepiest model list during our Halloween stream.
It's so good. I don't think it's creepy. I guess it is covered in blood.
It's a blood snake.
Yeah, okay, I'll give it to you.
I mean, look, I'm not saying it. You have to think it's creepy, but it definitely checks a lot of creepy boxes.
It's pretty metal, is what you're actually saying. Yeah.
But yeah, like so the Cauldron gives out the +1 armor save, can generate prayers to make them kind of buff a unit to do whatever it wants to do, and then there's a phase in the game where you can rally and bring troops back, and a lot of the armies are finding ways to increase that to like not be a 5 or 6, like even get 4+ on the rallies. So that seems to be something that generals have to contend with in Sigmar.
There's two commands that you can give. So you use command points to do that. So there's rally, which every time that I've tried to use it, I either don't get any models back or I'll get like 1. There's another command that you can give out that can be game winning, and it's called redeploy. And basically in your opponent's movement phase, if one of his units moves within 9 inches of one of your units, you can pay a command point and you can move your unit d6 inches, which is actually really powerful because it can help you jump onto objectives or make charges harder or anything like that. But I swear, like, out of the maybe 10 last times that I've used it, I think I've rolled a 1 on the d6 like 8 times.
Oh no.
I know. Yeah. I don't know if it's
Cursed.
because now I don't believe in the dice anymore or whatever, and I keep trying and I keep rolling really poorly. So, but it's good when other people use it.
The game's not you go, I go. You definitely still taking your turn, your opponent then takes their turn and stuff. But how it's different than Warhammer 40,000 is that there is a bunch of actions where you can kind of co-participate in the game during a couple of phases, which I like.
Yeah, I like it too. And because the commands are able to be triggered at certain times, it really keeps you engaged with the game all throughout your opponent's turn as well. So I really like that.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing some more Sigmar talk. Going to be joined by amazing Eddie Eccles.
Oh, that'll be super
Nice.
fun.
Yeah, I mean, he's just such a wealth of knowledge for all things Warhammer. He basically speaks Warhammer fluently, but certainly is going to be the Sigmar expert during the course of our broadcast.
So then you're like the social commentary, the color commentary.
I don't know what you call it. I mean, look, I can definitely spot what's happening in the mission, and I know several of the factions, but I don't have the depth of knowledge of playing all the factions.
Right. So you
Playing against
don't
all the
know
factions.
if there's like a faction specific command that's going to be coming down to like set up a play or anything like that.
Right. But
Yeah.
thankfully with the way Sigmar is constructed, everything is right there on the scroll. So if you're looking at a unit and you're curious about what it does, well, you can look
It's
at the
right
scroll.
there, baby.
Yeah.
It's so convenient.
Well, yeah, which really is cool.
Yeah.
So I won't be too far behind. And we did work together doing this commentary at Adepticon this year. So got, of course, I've known Eddie for years, but got a nice rapport back and forth. And again, I'm really looking forward to doing this with Eddie, and then seeing the cool armies and the generals that are there for Sigmar. So we don't often cover Age of Sigmar games, and so if you have not tuned in because we only cover Warhammer 40,000, check us out. We'll try to let people know when the Sigmar games will occur over the course of the weekend in case they want to come and view them. So that's it's going to be fun. I've been doing some research around the event hall to try to find cool places to eat. And
Tacos?
the coolest place that I have found, now look, I'm only looking at Google Maps. I'm not boots on the ground. I have no idea what is there yet. But I have found like a taco truck that I hope is in the spot that the map says it is.
Womp womp.
We'll see. I don't know where it is. I don't know what kind of environment we're going into as far as like what a trendy, how far away we are away from some kind of authentic places. But I want to check. Right, we got to shot it. We got to look. We got to look around.
I'm excited.
We have to find some place to get a taco, maybe a margarita.
Good. Let's do it.
I don't know if you've done any exploring.
I've done a little bit, just trying to look around what's there. I mean, again, there's got to be, and I'm pretty excited just again looking at the timeline, because I think that there's plenty of time to do that.
You might not be able to get out. I mean, they may need Colonel Pavel the whole time.
That's true. I mean, you go where you're needed. I get it.
Believe me, when Axel Hawk needs a taco, he might need to move the war correspondence down to the bodega.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like this thing, it's awesome. They've got several hours that it literally says time to explore on their timeline. That's awesome.
Nice.
So we'll take advantage of it for sure.
Yeah. Again, really looking forward to the area because in it, I've seen just pictures of the surrounding area, and it does look really nice to be able to go and chill out, maybe have a coffee on a patio or something like that, depending on the weather. Hopefully the fires are burning off the whole time. Going to be packing for the winter. Again, it's the only reason it's kind of remarkable is that without being to that area, and I'm showing my noobishness for travel to certain areas, is that you have certain perceptions of it's the desert, it's the southwest.
It's pretty beautiful if you've seen the pictures. I mean, I'm pretty stoked. I think it's going to be awesome.
I don't know why I'm just picturing Paul coming up from Georgia, and he's like wearing a parka and he's got mittens and all this. And I just have the feeling like if I was there, I'd be like, it's cold enough. I could put this light sweater on now, I guess.
Yeah, just throwing a cardigan, stroll about while we're over there fighting for our life, rubbing sticks together. It does get cold in Georgia. I just didn't expect it to be that like full on winter over there yet. But it's really close to Colorado, like
Yeah.
geographically wise. So I guess it all makes sense once you think about it. I just this week I dug back out. I have an Imperial Guard toboggan.
What?
Yeah, that I think came as part of like swag for one of the store openings or something.
What? A toboggan?
Yeah, like a knit cap. What do y'all call them? Scoons? Something, I don't know.
Well, we call them toques.
That's what it is. That's what it was.
Yeah, because I was gonna be like, a toboggan's really large.
Yeah, you
It's
should
like
you should bring
it's
this
like a,
thing because
it's
I'm
like
debating.
it's like a wooden sled. It's like, what? No, you guys call them beanies.
It
Right.
is similar to a beanie. It's not a beanie, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Sounds like a beanie, but okay.
It's beanie-ish.
It's a toque, eh?
I think it is. I don't even know what the clear definition of a toque is, but look, if people didn't know this is an international broadcast, they do now.
We act like Canada and the United States are so different. They're not.
You'll speak a lot of French in certain areas.
Yeah, in one of our provinces.
Oh, well, there we go.
Not mine. I don't speak very good French at all.
I know we've gotten kind of way off topic here. We should ask.
Have we?
We should ask Red about his tanks that he had to paint for this.
Well, like I said, I mean, so again, it's power level, right? So the cool thing is where a lot of times you're sitting there and you're putting together the tanks, because admittedly, for playing Tanith, and you haven't seen a lot of my tanks on the field because I've been playing Tanith, and there is some tanks, some of the tanks, but they're not really Tanith originated in the books. They belong to one of the other regiments that kind of gets paired along the Ghosts. However, in mine, they are an auxiliary force, and so I did get to incorporate them. But when you're building tanks competitively, and Tanya, I think you know what I'm kind of talking about. You're looking at it, you're like, man, do I really want to put all these sponsons and have to pay all those extra points for every single little weapon that I attach to this thing?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're looking at power level, I mean, it is what it is. It's
Put everything on them.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not because you're just breaking the bank or anything. I mean, everyone else has that same ability to do literally whatever they want with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the power level of a tank, I mean, it just that's it. You're rolling out with what you got, and so I'm looking up what the power level of a tank is right now, because I just you don't even think about power level until you start playing like this, and so a battle tank is it's nothing. I mean, it is a lot when it's 10 power level, right?
And you're trying to eat up you said 100?
Well, you can have a battle roster up to 150, and so I have a tank commander, and then I have 2 tanks in my overall battle roster, which will pretty much be in my consistent games. So the first 2 games are 50 power level, and so there might be some balancing where, like, maybe one of the tanks will be in one of the fights and the other tank will be in the other one. We'll see how that goes. But like, again, you get the option for a battle cannon. Battle cannon's 5 points on top of the whole weapon, which, let's say you go with the las cannon, right? That's 20 points, and then the sponsons for
you want multi-meltas.
You want multi-meltas, right? But even just heavy bolters is 30 points, and so like right there, 10 power level at a base of 150 points versus maybe up to 190 or even 100 and 200 points, and so like the points drastically change when you have that kind of fidelity. But when you're looking at power level, it's all just 10 power level. That's it.
Mm-hmm. I also kind of like that they made it 150 power level, because a lot of times your roster starts at 100 power level, and sometimes you feel like you don't have enough options for every scenario when you have 100 power level. But exactly. I think 150 is a nice compromise, because I think it'll just give you a few more maybe like targeted options for things.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I know that I have this maybe oddball scenario, or I know that I have the potential for this bad matchup. So the extra 50 power level lets you sort of customize your roster to deal with those sort of troublesome aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. And so you get to play with that, which I think is really cool. You get to kind of move some things around. I mean, I'm looking at mine right now. A shadow sword, for example, I mean, it's 27 power level. Why would I not bring? Why would I not bring my big black tank?
Are you bringing it?
Tank. Yeah, of course I am. I mean, the cool thing is, right, with this whole crusade thing, is that my main character, Colonel Pavel, I have a dismounted version of Colonel Pavel. I have a Lehman Russ version of Colonel Pavel, and I have a Shadow Sword version of Colonel Pavel.
I love it. I love it.
It's exciting. Like, I get to be like, all right, I'm gonna go get in the command tank and I'm gonna kill whatever I point at. Like, it's fun, right? Like, that's exciting. I'm super excited.
What else is in the list?
So the whole trick is that you know how the auxiliary thing works, and again, like the story, and I know like you didn't ask what the story is, you said what the list is, but they're kind of the same thing in this whole narrative thing. So you're stuck, Paul. I'm sorry. You played a card, and now I played my trap card. Listen to me talk. So no. So with this story thing, the 4th gen auxiliaries were built to you know augment and support the actual Tanith Ghost. Now the trick is that nobody knew that the Tanith Ghost kind of disappeared for 10 years while this whole thing happened, and so by the time they did get word, this whole auxiliary unit kind of became an errand. Like, they just started going to proximity, whatever emergency was right in front of them. Anyways, long story short, all the other people end up unfortunately kind of getting taken out, all the other auxiliary regiments, and the ghosts kind of absorb everybody else. And so that's where I've got this like larger Scion regiment that's part of it. I've got the tanks and everything, which normally wouldn't have been part of the Tanith Ghost. And so they're kind of this amalgamation of these other forces. Anyways, there is, of course, this meddlesome Inquisitor who is also in my list with his acolytes, because that's tons of fun. And he's essentially brought on the ghost and said, well, if you help me with this mission and help me accomplish my agenda, then I will ensure that you get back and are reunited with the Tanith first and only. And so, of course, you know, they don't really have an argument there. You don't argue with an Inquisitor. And so this Inquisitor is the whole reason why they're headed to the Sabrine system. And he's got his little crew of retinue. I legitimately have acolytes that are equipped according to the models. I'm bringing Jokero Weaponsmith, which is one of his crew, which is going to be fun. I have assassins in the list. I have a Calidus and an Eversor. The Eversor I'm using, I'll send a picture. I have a painted up cipher that I'm using, kind of like a modified cipher that is my Eversor.
Nice.
And then I have my Inquisitor. Have you seen those Age of Sigmar vampire hunter models, like the guy and the woman, those two?
Yeah, I think it's his daughter. I think.
Yeah, his daughter. So I've taken those two models and I've modded the guy into my Inquisitor. And so he's my Inquisitor, and then the daughter model I've incorporated into like one of his acolytes or interrogator, you know, but I use as a stand-in Calidus assassin, because she's like he's just an Inquisitor model that I use legit Inquisitor rules for, but she's supposed to be like super bad, so she gets to be a Calidus model, which is probably one of my favorite assassin models. And then I took the Cal Jericho model. That's one of the acolytes.
That's an old Necromunda model, right?
It is, yeah. And so just really excited. I have a old school Sly Marbo that is one of his acolytes and everything. Again, lots of fun to have this kind of flavor that I can have in here to play with. So that's with that. I have like I mentioned, I have a Scion regiment. I have an actual Tanith regiment that has the infantry squads based and built how I've built out all the Tanith squads with like flamers, and then I'm bringing. It's funny. I mean, this is one of those cases where when you consider power level and everything, I have an Astropath, Master of Ordnance, Ministrum Priest, Officer of the Fleet, Tech Priest, Engine Seer, like all these characters, because they're all part of the crew, right? Like they're all part of the team and the staff, and so bringing them all in, like all of that I just said, those 5, that's 10 power level. That's, you know, in the overall scheme of this roster, it's just fun to be able to add them in to play this narrative campaign, right? So I've got the battle tanks, and then I've got 2 mana cores, and
Just in case.
So we talked about the Death Strike missiles and everything, and 1 big missile can solve a lot of problems. 4 big, not as big missiles still solve a lot of problems. So it's there's nothing wrong with a little artillery, and the new codex hasn't come out yet, so I'm going to stick with these mana cores along with the battle tanks and everything, which I think is because they're called they are the Tanith auxiliaries, the 4th generation auxiliaries, but they call themselves Tanith Ghost and Shock Recon. So it kind of gives this whole new effect to between the Scion regiments and the tanks and the mana cores and the infantry, this kind of shock reconnaissance force that can deploy deep into enemy lines and then roll up and kind of hammer and anvil it between their infiltrating stormtroopers and battle tanks and mana cores and stuff like that. So, and then you've got this Inquisitor in the background who's really just trying to accomplish his mysterious objective in the Sabrine system.
Do you know the mysterious objective, or is that something that you're going to have unfold over the course of the weekend?
I mean, I can't convey that because that would be metagaming, Paul, but I do know, of course, his objective. He is, if you've been following my headcanon, Paul, he is the Inquisitor himself is a blank, and he is exceptionally interested in the Pariah Nexus and the things associated with what is occurring in that area. So if you were following my headcanon.
All right. Oh, man, I'm curious to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I'm really excited to play it out. I've been telling this story to my kids and kind of pulling them along so that they're trying to like guess what's going to happen and that kind of stuff. It's lots of fun. Really excited.
And they're going to get the tanks.
And they each get one of the my 8-year-old, he's going to be playing the tank that's called Dark Brother, because they're called the Brothers, the 2 tanks. And then cool. So there's Dark Brother, and then the other one is Hopeful Brother. I let them name them, so they named those Hopeful Brother and Dark Brother. And so it's kind of cool that they kind of played off that, but that the brothers will be these 2 tanks that are going to be on the field. That I think it'll be a lot of fun.
That's great. Oh, you're gonna have a blast,
man! I can't wait, and you get to see it unfold. It's gonna happen.
Look, I know I'm gonna like hearing things coming from the halls, hearing the participants talk about it in between the times when they're not playing, and then eventually seeing how it all wraps up. I know y'all are gonna love it too. That's our show this week. I know we jumped through like a bunch of different topics: Sigmar, narrative, competitive, tournaments, tacos, checking all the boxes. We will be back to full strength next week. I know it's a holiday in the U.S., but we're still going to get a show out.
I'll be here.
There you go. I know. I don't guess y'all have Thanksgiving in Canada.
We have Thanksgiving in October.
That's nice.
All right. See, we learn something new every day.
Yes, you do. Honestly, I think we have Thanksgiving in October because it's really dangerous to travel in November.
Oh, makes sense. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, seriously, thank y'all for listening. Please don't forget to leave us some 5-star reviews, some comments, and all that other kind of stuff. And we'll see y'all next week.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
FTN is also on Facebook. Please like us at www.facebook.com/Forge the Narrative.
Look, it's been a little bit, so if you've forgotten that we were going to have a full show and then like another little bonus part of the show, and you like stood in, it's like one of those CDs that plays at the end for 2 or 3 minutes and then comes back with like a bonus track that's not on the list.
Are you actually going to like edit in like 2 minutes of silence?
I would not.
And people will be like, why is it still going?
It's just a Marvel, post credits goodness.
I would not do that, folks. But thanks for hanging in here with us. And of course, again, for the patience from last week. But we are off the trail, or right off the heels. I read myself from the Grand Narrative in New Mexico. And Adam and Tanya, I hate that you have to hear us just gush over this event and that you couldn't be there. But
well, I wasn't doing nothing when I wasn't here last week. I went to Hobbiton, so I've got plenty of gushing to do myself. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear about that.
I do have some serious FOMO for missing out on the G-Dub final, so Yeah, very jealous, boys.
So there are two things at this event. This was the finale of the U.S. Open Series for Kill Team. And by the way, Kill Team was intense. Like, seriously, I'll explain that in just a little bit. Age of Sigmar, best general and best overall, and Warhammer 40,000, best general and best overall from the categories from the events that led up to this, and also some of the largest independent events, winners of the Las Vegas Open, the London Grand Tournament, and Nova Open were also invited to come participate in this as part of the final brackets, the double elimination brackets for Kill Team, Sigmar, and Warhammer 40,000. And this was all going on surrounded by the grand narrative event, where the events of the series of battles and campaigns, Crusade, will in some part be written into the lore for Warhammer 40,000 on the back of this, which is really pretty interesting. And that was an event very immersive. Red, you actually participated in that, and real anxious to hear your thoughts on it.
So, to trying to bring forth the event, I mean, I appreciate the opportunities you gave me to speak during the event. Paul, from the beginning and the end, and really coming off of it. We're talking about it in the pre-show. I got to admit, I'm a little bummed. And that's only because the event ended. It was just such a good time. I brought both of my two oldest, which was just a real pleasure to be able to enjoy the event with them. And what it ended up being, the US, GW Grand Narrative was, it was a crucial event. The Zabrin system and what the story that they brought together, and what we talked about, Paul, at the very beginning, about it being this family reunion of the community. Adam and Tanya, I regret both of you being there, but it was cool in the fact that I got to meet Scary in person, and I got to meet Josh Diffie in person, and the fact that they were connections to both of you as well, right? And so there was this familial community connection to all this, and it was just so awesome to be there. And the pacing of the narrative event and all the effort that the GW team put into it. They had from Ryan and Zach and Mike and everything, and Eddie, all the stuff that went into it. The reveal was amazing. Every day at 9 o'clock in the morning and at 9 o'clock at night, we had briefings where they updated the story as told by these cosplayers that were in full kit. The Lord General Castigane, the Starfaller, the Eldari Exarch, and then also Kran the Beast, the Chaos
I think she was
Warrior.
an Exodite Queen or something.
Exodite Queen. I mean, it was just amazing, and the tie-ins that they had, and the development from game to game, and every day at the end of the day, you kind of saw where everyone was at, and it was really awesome. Is the first night, man, not just the first night, but once after the first two games, the second night, we went through the briefing, and then a Space Hulk came out of nowhere, and there was a rush to get kill teams into the Space Hulk to seize the Space Hulk for one of the three factions. And the Imperium was able to take it, and then the next night it was, could the other two factions stop the Imperium from turning it on? And in the background of all this, you come to find out there's this Warhound Masterclass Titan painting class going on. There's 10 people, and they're all painting up these Titans, and get to the very end, and there's this, the Titans have come out of the factory, and they're getting to go to the front lines. And that's where there's one of these iconic things that you hear about, and you see that people get to enjoy this apocalypse-like event. But to have that put on by GW, and then manned and staffed by some of the best judges in the world. Josh Diffie was one of those that the judge kind of was an arbiter of the event. And, Mike Brandt explaining how the Titans were going to work. And of course, there was this opportunity. I had been an Imperial Tanith player the entire weekend. I'd been in my uniform. I I brought multiple versions of it, but I had different aspects of my Tanith uniform that I wore all weekend. And there were several other people that were in character all weekend. And as I mentioned, having brought my two boys, they got to play. They each manned their own tanks, their own Lehman Russ tanks, and it was very fun being able to engage with them and get them to do that while the games escalated and we get all the way to this big event, and for them to be able to see something like that as it went down was just it was awesome. I really hope to be able to share this experience again with others, and it's so hard after the fact to express just how much I look forward to the next one, because GW did such a good job at putting this narrative event on. I've been a huge fan, as I've said before on the show in other episodes, of the Crusade system, and they really showed a great way in how it could be done and how it could lead up into other things. And I think they've set the foundation and groundwork to take this forward with all their other open events and offer this as a building opportunity up to another amazing event like they did. I have no doubt they'll be able to replicate it another way, but I just hate that for other people that they won't have had the opportunity to attend the first ever Grand Narrative, at least in this generation of GW's presentation. But I have no doubt there will be great, amazing ones to follow for sure. I know I appreciate the time to share, because it was a pretty moving event for this hobby that we all love and know. And as much as I've loved the competitive scene, this storytelling and narrative, there's a Discord that was opened up weeks before the event, and people were writing in stories and writing in parts of their character, and they've followed up even after the event. And it's just been so amazing to how we've connected and been able to build on this hobby. And I really do look forward to see how it continues to progress.
All right. So I am a notorious interrupter, notoriously interrupting people when they're speaking. And I could not bring myself to interrupt Red just then, because everything he said was freaking awesome at every level possible. And well done to everybody who put that on. Absolutely jealous to my core. I missed out.
Every single one of the judges was in costume in some way and interacted with the participants as their characters. And a lot of the participants got into character as well. So I mean, some were there and just kind of marveling at the spectacle and playing along and doing their missions and participating on the level of their faction and also within their battle group. And one of the cool things also is that some people were at the complete extreme. They were in costume the night before the event. I was actually out roaming around with myself and Nick Navati and like just a camera. My camera was my phone that night, but with a mic, and we were recording people's like initial impressions and interviewing them, and we actually got some in character moments with some of the players that were just awesome. And those are on the Warhammer TV Twitch replays. You can go and see them interspersed throughout the Friday's coverage.
You even got into character too, didn't you, Paul?
A little, not as a little bit. Axel Hawk came on the scene as a Catachin War correspondent.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of this. It was amazing. It was as amazing as it sounds.
And got to interact with someone you just mentioned, Cran the Beast, which Cran the Beast was in character all the time he was on the stream, even when Axel wasn't the one talking to him. So Paul got to interact with Cran the Beast as well as Axel Hawk.
Amazing.
At some point, right? I mean, let's say we're doing this. I'm just thinking about the possibility. This is what they did this year. Just thinking about the possibilities for like what this could. This was the first run of this. This could be amazingly huge, encompassing, and phenomenal. Like my brain is going all sorts of crazy places with this. At some point, right? We need to get a reenactment where Paul gets to be Sanguinius. Right. At some point, it has to
start working on the costume now.
Right? Yeah. I mean, hopefully, it's not the last scene of Sanguinius's existence, but it could be one of the good ones where he like slices a Reaver Titan in half. Stuff like that.
And if I got to be Sanguinius for 5 seconds, it'd be good enough for me.
They hire Vin Diesel to choke you out in full Horus costume or something. I mean, if you're gonna go, like.
Let's do it, man. Let's start planning now. But so the way the story works is that, or at least it worked in this one, is there were 3 major factions: the Imperium, Chaos, and then the Interlopers. And the Interlopers were made up of most of the Xenos factions. And
fair.
you had and so each of these the I don't want to say the dramatis personae or whatever, but the characters that Red had mentioned earlier were the generals of those factions and would be responsible for giving out the briefings to all the players of those factions.
Yeah, so the generals would give out briefings, and they'd actually, in their briefings, you would get kind of the gist of what they wanted you to do, right? So, for example, the first day, the Imperials got the general gist of these missions to hold ground and abhor the witch. And so, even though we played Crusade missions, which have some pretty clear objectives, and there's the matter of like winning for your faction in those tactical missions, the greater operational objectives of playing into the story were to hold ground. So, the Voxlo column, which were the judges for each room, and each room was its own setting. And the whole team just did such an amazing job. You could
When you
tell.
say setting, these rooms were actually themed out with terrain, with some set pieces, with sometimes the temperature was a little bit different in the room depending on where you were. There were atmospheric like music playing and also scents from the area, kind of permeating the air.
So Lambda Row was a Mechanicum Forge area, and all the terrain was GW Forge terrain, and there was they had like some boxes and grates and stuff like that around, and then there was the Cargorium, which was part of the capital area, but it was supposed to be this like built up city area, and you go in there and that's exactly what the terrain was. And then there was like the chapel, the chapel area that it was all of the kind of cathedral Gothic terrain. It was very awesome, and all of the judges did a great job being in character. GW had this whole costume thing going for him and everything. And they all kind of tied in, and they were there to help as arbiters of the story aspect. And so you could try to do this versus that. And then there were also individual objectives that you could try for degrees of heroism versus villainy. And so there were certain things you could do if you did this versus that, or your warlord was able to accomplish this versus that. You were actually awarded almost like alignment points in how you operated within your own faction, not to mention did you accomplish or not accomplish your objectives for your faction. And that's all on top of the Crusade mission, even as it was, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, again, with all the stuff, you get the briefings, you get the results, the players will be talking to each other. The battle groups that you were talking about, it was neat to see them show up to the event and then start to find each other. And then so those 8 to 10 players, how many people were in the battle group each, Red?
I want to say that there were, some of it wavered in that how they built it up. I want to say it was somewhere between maybe 10 to 15 people, because sometimes, and I know it was different for some of the different factions, because in different rooms there was definitely more Imperials than there were either of the other two. So I think there were something close to 10, maybe 9 Imperial battle groups, and then there were maybe 4 or 5 battle groups for the interlopers and chaos, each having that many. And so sometimes the Imperials, we would go into a room and then there would be 2 battle groups of interlopers plus chaos in there, and we would be fighting that. And it was cool because they would set it up that, hey, the Imperials have landed, and so we were in Tazalakar South. And in Tazalakar South, Imperial forces had just defeated a corrupt governor from the area. And so it looked like a war zone where there was debris and broken vehicles all over the place. And then the Imperials were there trying to establish a defense. And now chaos was invading, and the interlopers were trying to disrupt both processes, both defense and the invasion. And so, when you went into the mission, it was important for the Imperials to take that defensive role to that extent. And it was really cool to see how they played all that in, and the judges helped oversee that whole process.
So the players that had only been interacting with each other through like Discord, when they showed up to the resort, they would find each other and start to kind of, have their battle plan groups and together in person. Was really cool to see. And then that's when they started forming in the lobby, and then it was just like great to get a couple of them to come over and talk, to do these little like pre-recorded interviews that we intersperse through our coverage from Friday. And on Friday, we talked about, on stream anyway, the breakdown of all the best general list for Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000. That was fun to do. Made some predictions on who we thought were going to take it, how deep they were going to go into the event, and it's fun.
But there seemed to be like gremlins in the feed at times.
So what Red mentioned is one of his, or the way he said it was, they'll reveal the preview that happened on Friday night actually played into the story. So what you saw in the Games Workshop preview was revealed to be the scrap code that was in the system disrupting the stream that interrupted the previous preview and played directly into the campaign that these players are playing in.
I didn't get to watch like a lot of the stream, but from what I did watch of the stream, because I tuned in a little bit on Friday, and what I did get to see, I was like, oh man, now I'm like emotionally invested in what's going on
They
with
gotcha.
with the grand narrative. And then it was my D&D night, so I didn't get to like finish watching it, and I don't know, I was like a little bit heartbroken that I I couldn't keep watching.
Did you see when the stream actually, like where it went a little glitchy and then the message started scrolling across the screen?
Yeah, that was awesome. I was like, I need to know more.
That was neat to do. And that binary that was at the end, it was lightning fast. Someone translated it. So someone just must speak binary out there, that was watching the stream, which is pretty cool.
There was like a legitimate tech priest in the chat.
Yeah, no
Amazing.
doubt. Yeah, that was real fun. And I hope we get to bring old Axel back. But I didn't want to I didn't want to be interacting with the participants and not give them some story if I had to get them on a camera or something like that,
But yeah, leading into that, this wasn't just it wasn't just games and narratives being had. There was some juicy reveals, right?
From the preview?
Yeah, man.
Did anything jump out at you?
Oh man.
Well, there's one of the best models I've ever seen. Just so happened to come out of this.
He got some creepy eyes.
Oh, it is 40k perfection, Blanche perfection. It is so one of the most grim, dark, perfectly posed, aesthetically pleasing to the narrative miniatures I've ever seen. And this is Vashtor from the Arcs of Omen narrative that's being launched by GW at the moment. Kind of wrapping up a couple of the storylines and launching the next phase of the narrative. And it's launching with I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm in love with this model. Like, I think it's incredible.
I really, really like the model, but I actually like the lore behind it. Like, from what they've told us, is that he may look like a demon prince, but he's not really, because he's not associated with one of the chaos gods.
Ooh, then
what? Fooled me.
Yeah, could
You guys weren't listening to the lore?
No, it was great. It was great. Yeah, go ahead, Tanya.
So basically, he's his own new thing. So he's not associated with any of the chaos gods, so he's not a demon prince. And he is a manifestation of like creation, not necessarily like the creation of life, but like the creation of what I guess is like science and technology and that. And I just think it's so cool that we can see potentially maybe a new chaos god being birthed in this new set of lore.
Yeah. So it was pretty awesome, being at the reveal, because the way that they lined it up and they wanted it to be a private release before it all went online, which was really cool, being able to be there for that. And then when they released and talked about Vashtor, they laid out all the lore that they had available for him then and there. And I think the online reveal probably did a great job of relaying that too. And you're absolutely right, Tanya. So it alludes to the fact that he's really been in the shadows of this. And he's been like the arms dealer to the other chaos gods, right? And so he's really been like, so the Forge Fiends, the Mauler Fiends, the demon engines and stuff like that. Like, he helps do this on behalf, like it's like a contract or a business deal almost with the different chaos gods. And so he is this. It's Be'lakor is the first demon prince. Vashtor does not classify as a demon prince. He's his own thing, not even necessarily new, maybe new to us, and that he's actually stepped out of the shadows to whatever degree. But they go on to lay out in the Arc of Omens how he has this key role in this whole aspect of it, and Abaddon and the Arcaphane, right? Vashtor, the Arcaphane, are working out some kind of deal where Vastor's trying to seize some kind of advantage while enabling Abaddon to accomplish one of his missions. And so, like, to credit where he's coming from or how he manifests, Vastor like comes from machinery and whatnot. They talked about like the process to like summon him, because that was the whole thing. So Kran the Beast, the general of the Chaos Forces during the narrative event, was actually working for or referenced the Arcaphane several times. And they even talked about at the reveal, like how it takes like the machinery and everything, and then they have to like sacrifice a bunch of living stuff, and all that flesh and everything then comes together to the physical manifestation of Vastor. It was just really awesome how they set all that up and laid it out for us.
So I skimmed this, but then like what you guys just did, had somebody pretty much give me an explanation similar to what that was. And the thing that I said to them immediately was like, oh, wow, they've made a dark side Belisarius call that is also a rogue trader for the Chaos Gods. And I'm like, that's an incredible web to weave. And so far, I feel like that analogy has held for anybody trying to get their head around what role this guy plays in this narrative. But yeah, kind of a dark side Belisarius call is kind of where I laid on it and where I came to it. But it's not Mechanicum, because my first reaction was like, Dark Mech, here we come. The trail leads from here. Let's get a full range of this aesthetic, Dark Mechanicum, which I know a lot of people have been losing their minds about that possibility. But now we're getting something completely different again. Like G-Dub is taking a sidestep from expectation, and I am not going to complain. This looks phenomenal. I love everything about this narrative.
I completely agree. I mean, it's one of those that kind of also took everybody for a loop to figure out that when the meta of the reveal was playing into what they were doing and laced into that, there was enthusiasm and adrenaline the whole weekend for the narrative. Like that's the players playing the finale felt it too. We haven't even talked about the finale for the competitive side of things, and like, because even they were feeling it there. That's how cool the narrative stuff was. Like all the players read. Of course, they were very well, dialed in on the game they were playing, but they were, constantly like, man, what's going on out there? Yeah, I need to go check that out. Yeah. So when I mentioned that the kill team was intense, is that there were all the kill team players, as they began to get eliminated, they didn't like file out to the other rooms or leave the hall or whatever. They were all just rooted into the games that the people that were still in it were playing, because by all their accounts, the people that made it to the finals are two of like the best kill team players in the world, and they wanted to see how those games played out.
I love that.
Yeah, and got to talk to them. A lot of support in the chat for the kill team players. A lot of support in the chat for the main kill team judge, Ben Crush, who was there. And it was kind of cool because as soon as, brought him on stream to talk about it, and, people in the chat like, oh, Ben, it's so great, then had a gentleman on that goes by the name of Ace. Sorry, Ben Cash. I said that wrong first time. I apologize. But then, yeah, Ace from Spain, apparently amazing #1 seed kill team player in the world right now. Lost in the final match. You can go back and see some of the stuff on the stream as well. And the Warhammer 40,000 overall, James Kelling ended up beating Andrew Gagno in the finals in a best of 3 match.
Well, yeah, because they ended up playing 3 games, didn't they?
Yeah.
Gagno got the first one, James got the second one, James got the third one. It's a really cool story to it.
Yeah, it is. And that's, kind of one of those things where we talk about, practice makes perfect, kind of thing.
Well, exactly right. So James went, I can't remember if James went first or second in the first game, but after the end, I think it was the end of turn 1 or turn 2, James was convinced he couldn't win, made the adjustments, came back to the table, and managed to get 2 grindy, really well played out, really fought hard for those 2 next wins, and obviously had learned, adapted, and figured out the win path from there. It was really cool to show just what people can do with just 1 rep.
Yeah, well, and Andrew changed it up too. So when he went second the second match, he kept his planes on the table, and of course immediately the planes were picked up. Because they did so much devastation to James in the round that he went first, and the planes were on the table. The third game that they played, he put the planes back in reserve. So it's kind of cool
adaptation.
Yeah.
Well, this played out the same in the best general round as well, didn't it? Where the same players played 3 times.
It did. So it was John Lennon versus Jack Harpster, and in the first game, Jack lost to John.
No.
Was it? Go ahead.
It wasn't the other way around. First game, Jack steamrolled John. Then John made the adjustments.
No,
Jack
John had
tried the
already
same.
lost in the
Oh, of
round.
course.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
so
Yeah.
John so it was double elimination. So the reason they had the players had to play each other twice was because it was double elimination. So you actually win. The player that continued to win would follow on in the main bracket. The players that lost would shuffle into the elimination bracket, and then they would meet again in the finals if they could battle their way back into it, not lose a second round. And in the first game of the finals, it's John versus Jack. Jack calls the wog on for turn one, pushes up into John. John is able to just endure. A couple things went poorly for Jack. Is that he couldn't get the kill. The kill rig was too big to pile into combat, so missed out on some of that, and then missed out on a charge from one of his war bosses. So while he did have a very impressive push, and of course you couldn't get everything in there, I don't even know if that contributed to what was the eventual loss in the first round, but it definitely contributed to John being able to stabilize, and then ended up winning out in that first game. And then so they had to play another game, and Jack was able to get up by, I believe, 1 point on him.
Well, it was a lot of 1%ers that flipped it for John in the first one. Like you said, the kill rig not being able to make it around to make combat and kind of really push the pressure. And also, there were some actual unique choices in John's list that you wouldn't conventionally see in a lot of other top table sisters lists. That being a lot of the warsuit, the Paragon warsuits, and I think it was the Mortifiers.
They were, yeah. And I will say that, these players we've seen over the course of the series on the best general and the overall side have been innovators in list design. And
absolutely,
like John Lennon's list has become the archetype for what is now the winning Tyranid list with Spore Cyst and Spore Mines and that kind of stuff.
Exactly right. Yeah, and the Bivores for the whole, the Spore Mine field almost.
Yeah,
and
great.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to see Paragon Warsuits, which I'm of the opinion they should have like 2 more wounds for their points cost. But against Orcs, they really shone. They shone through really hard and showed that they have a lot of play into certain matchups.
Well, yeah, and then also on the other side with Jack and the kill rigs. Now, we've talked about how that third kill rig, might be a liability, and it wasn't for Jack. I mean, like I said, he did win out for sure. And I know I mentioned that he wasn't able to get one in a pile in, but that sometimes just happens, for other reasons. He found a way to effectively use the 3 kill rigs, and was doing a lot of damage to folks over the course of the weekend. And that's with that not an orc list you've commonly seen anywhere out there in the last 8 months.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's been that third one and getting the mileage out of it, where people say, "Oh, 3's too many, 1's not enough." What is the right way to make all these work? Because they're such big bases. They're huge bases. They don't have fly. They're not Titanic as well, like Knights, where they can walk over certain model types either. So they're really prone to getting roadblock. And the one thing that Orcs want to do is to get stuck into the meat of the opponent's army. And when you could just have like one guardsman standing up being like, haha, you can't get past me. It can get really frustrating.
And another thing on the other side, in the best general, like with James, with his an uncommon Eldari list, I had Wraith cannons in there, D cannons, Rangers, which you don't all the time see. Obviously, you have the Rangers for the secondary scout the enemy to do that a little bit more efficiently, but still, you don't necessarily see Eldari players taking that. And then Ganyo with piloting a list that I think is starting to slowly become like the the Tau list with 3 Riptides, a couple of Sunshark bombers, not having a bunch of crisis suits in it, being the opposite of what folks are doing out there right now. So, not surprised to see these players in the finale, but it was stiff competition all around.
Yeah. And top level generalship, top level gentlemanly play and sportsmanship across the board. And yeah, it's exactly what we expected, top tables, and they really shone through and played like gentlemen all the way through.
Yeah. So that's, look, that's this part of the show. We're going to be talking more about the narrative, more about the stuff next week, and can keep shows going, of course, every week. I sincerely apologize for this one being delayed.
You got a pretty good excuse,
we did those. So once we started talking to folks there and getting their stories, and I thought this needs to be in the stream. So just do as many as we possibly can. And then the rounds were 4 hours long and 3 rounds a day. So 12 hours of streaming every day, which I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, go back and watch the coverage. Just really jazzed to be there. Happy to have the opportunity to do it and bring that to anybody that would want to watch it. and then also keep telling these player stories. So, and Red is on there too. So Red, we have Red as just old Red Pavel, and then you have Commander Red Pavel that we have towards when were you on? Do you remember?
I came on, so I was on there earlier at the very beginning, like right that evening as I drove in, and then it was right after the end of the big fight.
The Titan battle. So that must have been
the grand fight. So that was the last day. And
that was
so
Sunday.
It would have been the last day.
Yeah.
Adam, did you hear about the grand fight, how it went down?
Oh, let me set this up again. So I know you mentioned there was a painting class. So the master class Titan painting class offered at this thing. Now you had to buy the Titan or buy your entry into the class, which included the price of a Titan. So wasn't necessarily cheap, but 10 to 12 people did come and participate in this, and Games Workshop got the Titan built to a certain amount of subassembly and then primed, and then the player or the participants painted their Titans over the course of the weekend and had them ready to bring on to the battlefield for this engagement.
Yeah, and so it was pretty epic. I think maybe, I know we're getting ready to close out, Paul, so maybe another time I'll have to relive it because it's going to take me a minute. But
we'll talk about it next week. But those Titans, that's one of the coolest things is that the players got to get their Titans battle ready and on, like, as the class promised. And then we have pictures of them. Like, go back and look at the stream. Like, they are amazing.
They're awesome. They did really well.
The instructors are top notch. It was Caleb and Kat, and they did an amazing job getting the players ready. And we got to see it on stream. Go check it out. Go check out some of the coverage on the Warhammer Twitch stream. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I'm just stunned by the concept, by the organizers being like, you know what we need to do with this? You guys know what we're going to do? We're just going to like get people to buy and paint a Titan on site, slap it into the narrative, and just roll with it. Like sitting around the table discussing getting that going and off the ground, just conceptualizing that, kind of having the cojones to just go for it, just being like, you know what we're going to do? Yeah, people will want to do this. Let's do it. And 12 people did. It seems just so wild to me that but yeah, I love it. Just the sheer brilliance and audacity of the concept is stunning to me. Great. What an idea.
Folks, that's our show for this week. Really appreciate y'all listening. We will see y'all next week.
See ya.
The Sept tenets demand you tune in next week. For the greater good, of course.